Welcome to Training Talk, guys. We are now live. Welcome to the show.
What's up, man? I'm afraid to talk.
Yeah. I think we're kind of all in the same boat. I'm sitting there thinking, wait, no one has said anything real quick. Hopefully they can hear me.
Right.
Hopefully
Well,
I can hear them.
Thanks for having me on, guys. I apologize for the background noise, and I'm at the remote location of the Whittington Center in Raton, New Mexico right now. So
Nice. Yeah, you've got something going on there this week, right? This weekend?
yeah, I'm hanging out with Lucid Optics, and it's their annual ballistics summit. This is a media event for some of the smaller manufacturers to get in front of the big media and showcase their products.
Awesome. I guess so you've got people there besides Lucid?
Yeah. So Lucid runs the event. We've got APF Armory here. We have TNVC, Tactical Night Vision. We got 10th Mountain Whiskey that's providing the evening entertainment. Modern Spartan Systems. I've got Retin One. They do some really cool medical stuff. So and there's a few others here that I haven't really got a chance to meet yet, but those are the big players.
Awesome. Well, it sounds like y'all got a good weekend ahead. You probably have a good night ahead once you duck behind. What is that, door number 27?
Yeah, 27. Yeah, I don't know. I think that's Rob's room, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. For some reason, I thought you guys were in Wyoming still. Like I thought
Nope.
it was like where we did the Recondo event.
Nope, we always come to the Whittington Center for this, just because it's got we're all hanging out in the competitor housing, so
Okay.
keeps everybody together. Have a common area. I know Rob's supposed to be showing up here soon. He's bringing Avidity arms, so we'll be playing with some of the PD10s. It's going to be a good weekend. Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
And I still have not cleaned mine since Recondo.
And it's still running good, huh?
It's still running. It's getting a little sticky if I have to manually operate it.
That's cool.
But I'm really curious to see how many rounds it'll take before it stops.
Yeah, mine went back to them, just like I guess most of ours obviously went back to North Carolina. So it actually came back nice and cleaned up. But my understanding is the engineers kind of found it interesting, how gummed up and how dirty, we managed to get them over the week, and yet they were still running.
Well, they got to understand. I mean, the environments that we work in.
Exactly. Well,
I
welcome
won
to
the
the show,
award.
Jason. Sorry, Deryck.
I said I won the award for the most dirty gun that they were shot to the ring.
The gully was dirty, huh?
The guy.
Yes, it was. The gully was dirty.
God, and I guess that means I'm broadcasting from the gully tonight.
Right.
Well, yeah, we should have a good broadcast tonight. Jason, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I'm the owner and lead instructor of Wyoming Tactical. I travel all over the U.S. doing, in addition to intuitive defensive shooting courses, I do carbine, I do long range. Actually, next year we're looking at putting in a defensive shotgun class. One of the unique things about my company is we offer packages that include the firearm, the optic, the ammunition, and the training. And then the students go home with the equipment that they trained on. Now they're not having to go home and recreate what they used in class.
That's cool. I saw you doing that when the PD10 first came out. Did you do like an inaugural class with the PD10?
Actually, we've been doing it all year. We've done 6 classes so far this year that most, if not all, of the students in the class have bought the package. So, and it's a cool deal. I mean, we're giving them the PD10. We're doing a G-code holster, 500 rounds of ammo, a day's training. So it's the IDS fundamentals class. And they go home with the gear they trained on, and it's $1,200 package.
Nice. You've got quite the training facility, the training location, to be able to work out there. And so I'm glad to hear it's working out well, providing the gear too.
Yeah, no, it's been going incredible. In fact, I think in having a few conversations with Rob, I think we're going to try and offer this as a program for other instructors to pick up.
Awesome.
Nice.
Well, good deal. And so what do you do with Lucid Optics?
So Lucid has been a sponsor of mine for about 5 years now. I do a lot of stuff with them in terms of our package deals. Most of our packages have Lucid on top of the gun. I kind of fell into them. It's been about 8 years ago now. I started coming out, hanging out with them, and training with them a little bit. Learned more about glass and batteries and how optics work than I ever really wanted to know. And now I go to a lot of their events and take care of the training and the safety side of it. But what I've really done for them is develop part of my curriculum as teaching the consumer so they actually understand what it is they're buying when they're looking through an optic.
Well, yeah, no, absolutely. And you just recently wrote an article, on the Personal Defense Network's page. Does the color of my reticle matter? And and I got to be honest, it's if you would have asked me that question 3 months ago, before any conversations with you and I, my answer likely, would have been very different. So I think there's going to be a, pretty interesting show for the viewers tonight, because I think that there is a lot more to it than, just what color you think kind of works best because you picked it up in the gun store, even because you took it out at the range. And so I'm excited to kind of peel back a few layers of the onion and, deep dive into ultimately, how the eye sees these colors and what colors work best with the eye and the different technology available. Somebody just sent a text. I'm laughing because somebody just sent a text that Deryck and I are twinning tonight.
Yeah.
I just realized that
and oddly enough, I have that shirt with me. I just didn't wear it.
Yeah, that would have been great.
So what really got me interested in this, so right now the primary reticle colors are red and green, and while I don't want to sit here and say that red and green are bad, they're not. But the fact of the matter is, blue is better. And
you're gonna go jump it right into the blue, huh?
I am, and the reason I'm going into this right now is because anybody that's trained with us and has been through the IDS or been around us, we talk about increased blood flow to the center field of vision, right? Okay, the cones in our eyes give us increased visual acuity. Well, those cones are also responsible for the way we see color. Now, most people, I say most, because there are exceptions, most people have cones that are activated by 3 colors, and that's red, green, and blue. Now, there is a very, very small percentage of women who have 4 color receptors. And what this allows them to do, it's not that they're seeing any different color, it allows them to see much finer shades of color. But again, so traditionally we had red and green reticles. Now, probably a decade ago, you started to see manufacturers, especially on their etched reticles, start to use blue illumination. And it's easier on the eyes. If you've ever compared looking through a red reticle to a blue reticle, you're going to notice you can look through that blue reticle with a lot less eye strain. The reason for that is that blue is a calming color to humans. Red is an alert color, and think blood. Okay, so it creates a strong emotional response in humans. And it is aggravating to the eye in that particular wavelength. So it actually causes our eyes to vibrate. And this is why most of the time when you look at, especially a dot, it's not so much when there's actually a reflected reticle, but a dot in particular, there's always that little bit of flare around the edges. And for people with astigmatism, it's especially bad.
And that was really, a lot of what started this conversation with you or I, right? I'm in Wyoming, and Jason's like, "Hey, have you ever heard of, or have you ever, used model X and X on the rifle? What model was it from Lucid?"
The 1 to 6. It was their L7.
So it was their L7, right? Have you ever seen the L7 with the blue reticle? I'm like, no. Let me, and I pick it up, and obviously there's a lot of fads that take place inside the firearms industry, but I picked up the blue, and it was the clearest image, clearest reticle and an illumination that I've ever seen. right? It just, my eyes went right to it. I've got astigmatism. Everything that I pick up, all I see is starburst and everything. And in fact, I went years using red dots before I even realized with the technology that wasn't even normal. And in fact, it was Deryck, one time showed me a picture of, hey man, this is what it's supposed to look like, or something like that. And I'm like, that's the textbook image. That's not what the human eye sees. That's what the textbook image is. And it was that conversation where I actually realized that, wait, hang on, most of the world sees this perfect, clear, perfect reticle, right? I don't. I see a burst of light. And so when I picked up the blue, it was completely clear, in my eyes. I was able to pick it right up. They're very crisp edges to it. The round was round, and it worked out extremely well. And so my first question, to Jason, without any other influence on any of it, was, is there a reason, why this is clear and, most colors are red and green typically are not when I'm using red and green. And so that's where he started to answer the questions is yes, the human eye sees these colors very differently.
And it's because you're basically on opposite ends of the spectrum as far as wavelength is concerned. Now, the reason that we've always had the red and green is they started out with red. And that was because at the time, the coatings on optics. Now, understand a lot of what we're talking about here only applies to reflex optics. Now, the difference between a reflex optic and like the L7 that you looked at is that that color is actually refracted off of an etched reticle. A true reflex optic, that's going to be your aim points, your pistol dots, those types of things. Okay, so the big hurdle, and this is why they've always been able to do red and green, because they started out with red because that's what the coatings would reflect. Green is a very, very similar wavelength as far as color goes. So they're able to use the same coatings and still use the green. Now, blue is a different animal. Part of that is because one of the cool things about blue is that it's semi-transparent. You can kind of see through it. The advantage of that to a shooter is that a lot of times if you're looking at a very small target or something very, very far away, an example of that is, Jason Wilson and we just completed Rob's advanced pistol handling and unorthodox shooting positions. And one of the things that we did was unreasonable distance shooting. We were shooting a target at like 90 yards with a 9mm pistol. Well, when it gets to be like that, a lot of times the target that you're actually aiming for with red or green, because they don't have that transparency, you can't see through the dot. And it may actually obscure the target that you're actually aiming for. With the blue, there's a little bit of transparency to it, so you actually have a much finer aim point when you're doing something like, a very extreme long range or very, very small targets.
You're talking about like if you're using like a 3 MOA dot and you're backed up far enough and you're shooting at like a 2-inch target, all of a sudden your dot is almost the exact same size or maybe a little bit bigger than what you're trying to hit. So with the blue, you can kind of see through it to pick up if your dot's showing bigger than your actual target. Exactly.
Now you have that absolute precision aim point if you're using a dot. Whereas the red and green, because you can't see through them because of the way the wavelength works, it may completely obscure that target that you're looking at.
That's cool. Like I noticed a difference. Like I went from a red dot to a green dot for my first optic on my PD10, and I noticed the green did reduce my astigmatism, like that starburst effect, a little bit better than the red did. But the blue, when I looked at your rifle when we were at that Recondo event, was like, wow, that's what dots are supposed to kind of look like.
It's completely gone. Part of that is because the green is getting closer to the blue wavelength on the spectrum, but not far enough to completely eliminate that astigmatism issue. The other downside to green, where a lot of people find the green is a lot easier to pick up, especially quickly, and even I do, especially in bright sunlight, I think green is almost easier to pick up. The issue is that green is very, very power hungry. You're probably looking at 30% reduced battery life in green. And that's one of the huge advantages to blue. Blue uses about 35% less power than green, about 20% less power than red. You can I actually have what I brought with me tonight. This is Lucid's E7. This is the world's first reflex optic in blue. And I'm going to try and do this here. I don't know if you guys can see the blue illumination in there.
Yep, I'm seeing
if that's coming through. Yep. Okay.
Yep.
So this has been on the highest power setting since October. And
almost a year.
Yeah, it's almost a year.
Yeah, so no diminished battery life yet. They are claiming 55,000 hours. And this is using a 2032 coin cell.
Wow.
At its highest setting.
That is at its highest setting. We left it on purposely. We're trying to figure out how long it takes for the battery to actually die.
Well, any expectations?
You know what? If it goes a year, I'll be impressed. What I'm hoping for is it'll make it till SHOT Show.
Let me get a swisher though. Can I get a stripper? Hey, can I get a swisher?
No, not in this one. And I've seen a few of the other prototypes come in. I know somebody out there's probably wondering. This is in production right now. They are expecting this will be available on the market in somewhere between 45 and 60 days. And this one's kind of cool. It's run on an Arco rail. It comes. You have three height settings that you can adjust to. They all come in the package with the optic. So, it's going to be something to take a look at.
Once you hold it back up again. Just the overall, yeah.
Yep. So this is the E7. And what took this so long to get to market was the coatings. So he had to figure out the math on the coatings to actually reflect blue properly. And it has to be in a certain wavelength, because that's the danger with blue, is when you get too far on one end of the blue spectrum, now you're getting into ultraviolet, which we all know is harmful to humans. One of the things I did in the article, it's the difference between looking at blue sky and looking at like a tanning bed. We know one's dangerous, but we can sit under blue sky all day long and it's not really going to hurt us.
And so that's the reflection, the coating on the glass is what protects us from that.
Well, no, it's not even the coating on the glass. It's just it has to be in the right spectrum to work with the way our eyes work. Yep. If we were to push that wavelength to further to the blue spectrum, then we're getting into that ultraviolet, and now we're reflecting ultraviolet light into our eye, which we don't want to do. So you have to be careful with the spectrum that you're using. One of the other advantages to it, and this was part of the other hurdle that they had to overcome, was getting that right wavelength. Blue is the fastest transmitted color. So if you think about this, and I know everybody's had it happen to them at one point, your low light situation, and somebody flashes a bright light in your eyes, and it washes out your vision. Well, blue is going to be the first color to come back. So what that means is, if you get flashed with a white light and now you've washed out your vision, you throw your reticle up and that blue you're going to be able to see that sooner than you would see green or red. It also, and one of the things that we're going to be testing this weekend, it works better with night vision. So we've got the TNVC guys out here. We're going to be doing a lot of testing with their night vision and under the blue and see what really works better. And actually, hopefully, be able to get some measurable results.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm going to do some, put some science behind it, measure some stuff.
Always put the science behind it. If you don't have the science, you're just talking out your ass.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, Don Edwards used to work for TNDC for a while. Is Don out there by any chance?
He is not. I sorry, I didn't catch the guy's last name. His name's Shane. Is here with those guys. We've also got Brian Hunter out here that works a lot with them.
Okay, because I know Don's a contributor here to PDN. He's on the tour, and he does a lot of night fighter classes. Even like he travels around and does actual night vision only classes. So that's why I was just curious if he's out there.
Right. Yeah, no, Don. We got Shane, and like I said, we got Brian Hunter out here. So
cool.
So what else?
So that optic, are they going to be going down in size like after that one rolls out? Are they looking at like pistol optics at all?
They are. And in fact, I have a couple of prototypes that I've been running just to kind of durability, and they're trying to choose a manufacturer. Also kind of the same issue there is they're trying to make sure that the coatings are right, that everything's going to be good. I'm running a prototype right now on my PD10. Lucid developed and prototyped an optic specifically for that gun, for the thin profile of the slide. I've been running that now for almost 6 months, 4 months, 5 months, something like that. It's been and that will, when that comes to market, that will be in blue.
Cool. Now, I'm assuming it's closed emitter, right?
No. So the E7 is a closed emitter. The one that he's making for the PD10 will not be. It's going to be kind of your standard pistol red dot.
Oh, that's cool. I mean, I've messed with closed emitters on pistols like the Acro. They're fine. I like the smaller profile of the standard open emitter. Like I like the smaller footprint. So that's cool.
I think on a pistol it works a little bit better just because of field of view issues. The closed emitter is definitely, I think, more of a rifle carbine platform, just because of the way you're using it. Out, when you're holding that thing out 3 feet from your face, I think having that field of view kind of works more to your advantage than having the closed emitter.
Yeah, and the closed emitter on a rifle, right? You got that fourth point of contact and that cheek weld. That's going to put it pretty much where you need it, so you don't have to search for it as hard.
Right.
Yeah. So, yours was a what? Second focal plane?
Yes. Yeah. So the L7 that I run, it's a 1:6 second focal plane MOA base scope. And I think in that platform, that is the way to go. It's an AR platform. I run a 5.56. I'm not going to be taking a shot much past about 600 yards. Now, we have had those sitting down on benches, screwing around, sighting them in. My wife actually 6-inch plates at 1,000 yards all day long. And she'll tell you exactly how to do it. You just hold it in the same place every time. Now, I don't know why I never thought of that, but she's kind of a savant like that. But same thing,
all you have to do is just hold it in the right place.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But Brandy's also a competitive shooter, and she also teaches long range as well, doesn't she?
Yes. Yeah, she teaches long range for Lucid. She also will AI in my classes. This year, she actually started competing in ELR. I took her to the Night Force ELR over in eastern Wyoming. I think that was first part of June, and I watched her 2,050 yard target. And because of the scope setup she was running a 6.5 PRC. She didn't even have the target in the scope. She had to hold over so much, but still managed to get the job done.
Wow.
Guesstimate it.
Yeah.
I guess she knew her holdovers. Guesstimate where the actual target was.
Yeah, that was literally what she did. She saw it. She figured out the target. Kind of took a scientific wild guess and went, "There's a sagebrush. That's what I'm going to use for an aim point." And
See,
connected.
Just hold it in the right spot.
Exactly.
It's not that hard.
No, not at all.
No, definitely so. No, what optics are y'all running on those rifles?
So she's running Lucid's L5. It is a second focal plane, MOA based. It's a 6-24. That's kind of their flagship hunting scope. I typically on my competition rifles, I run their MLX, which is a 4.5 to 18 mil base scope, first focal plane. And really, when you're talking reticles and MOA versus mils, first focal plane versus second focal plane, a lot of what that boils down to, and that seems to be the 9mm versus 45 caliber argument of the long range world, is, you know, what scope and first focal plane, second focal plane, mils, MOA. What it boils down to is, what language do you want to speak? Competition shooters, most of them are running first focal plane mil based scopes. So if you want to be able to talk to them, that's pretty much what you got to run. Hunting application in every one of our hunting rifles, I run second focal plane. I think it's faster, it's more precise, which sounds kind of crazy when you're talking, you know, long range precision competition. But competition it's minute of steel, it's pass fail. I'm not taking an unethical shot on a steel plate. Whereas, you know, if I've got that elk at 450 yards and it's the last day and I'm trying to put meat in the freezer, I have to know that I'm going to make that shot and it's going to be right. I can't miss by half a plate. So the better precision with the second focal plane, and also just the increments in the scope themselves. MOA second focal plane scopes tend to be 1/8 minute. Whereas mil, yes, they're metered in 10th minute on the turrets, but if you think about a 10th minute at 100 yards, that's it's a third of an inch. That's a bullet width. So if you're trying to get a super refined zero on a mil based on a mil based scope, mils are going to hurt your feelings. I think out of like 4 or 5 different rifles that are all running mil based scopes, I think I have one that's actually dead center. The rest of them are off, you know, half a bullet.
Yeah. Like most of the commercial markets MOA though, right?
It depends on what you're looking for. I mean, I kind of see about 50-50, and it really just depends on what you're doing with it and what language you want to speak. You know, one of the disadvantages to an MOA versus a mil, I've never seen a metered spotting scope in MOA. You can't do it. So like when we're teaching our long range classes and stuff, I'm back spotting my students. You know, most of them are running mils. I typically get about 10% of my students are running MOA scopes. The rest are running mils, which is handy for me because I can run a first focal plane mil metered spotting scope, and I can give them very, very precise follow-ups. So if they miss, I can go, you know, I can tell them, okay, you need to come up 0.2 and you need to come right 0.3. Whereas if I'm doing that with an MOA shooter, I've got to go, okay, you got to come up half a target and you got to go right half a target, right? So it's a lot less precise being able to do it that way. But I'll guarantee you that MOA shooter is going to have a more precise zero at the end of the day.
Now, do you have the MOA shooters? Are you seeing them turn around and make different purchases next time after coming to their classes?
A few. And really what it boils down to, again, is their application. If they're coming in, they want to learn to shoot long range because they want to go and shoot competition. A lot of them are turning to the mil scope, but I've had a couple people come in and they're like, hey, I just want to get better at long range shooting because I want to be a better, more ethical hunter. They're sticking with their MOA.
No, you're running a lot of these classes out there in the Wyomings, huh?
Mm-hmm.
And around. You just teach them at your home range, or you bounce around?
So long range, just kind of by necessity because we got to have the space. I mean, we shoot out 2,000 yards and sometimes beyond. By necessity, we kind of got to do it in Wyoming. I do my pistol and my carbine classes. I've done, this year I've been in Texas, Missouri, Colorado. I'm in Raton now, New Mexico, doing some stuff here. So I travel all over the country doing that. Again, like our long ranges, like I could do a long range class here, but the Whittington Center has a facility for that. Most places don't. They don't have that 1,000, 1,500 yard range that we need to teach that class. So by necessity, I pretty much do those almost exclusively in Wyoming. A lot of our classes that involve the packages that we were talking about earlier, I do those in Wyoming. If we've got a friendly FFL somewhere that's willing to work with us, we can do it in other places. The one that I do not do anywhere other than home is we do an AR build class where the student comes in, I hand them a box, we build their AR, and then we spend the next day and a half proving it on the range. By necessity, just because of the licensing and the ATF and things like that, I have to do that at home because my FFL is a manufacturer. So it allows us to do that legally.
Yeah. Bring your receiver to class kind of thing for the others, for the other
pretty
states.
Yeah, pretty much.
Here's your box of parts, but you've got to bring the firearm.
Yeah, exactly. We can do that, but depending on the state and the municipalities and things like that, sometimes those guys can get kind of touchy about it. So just, to play it safe and make sure that our students don't get in trouble doing something. We do the builds at home, and the long range, we've got about 3 or 4 places across the U.S. that we can really effectively teach that class.
Now, me being a resident of Louisiana, right? If I wanted to come up and do something like that, where you hand me a box, it's got everything in there, I build the gun out, I'm able to do that in Wyoming and then just kind of ship it home to an FFL, or?
Yeah, that's all we do. And, you come to class, you build the gun, we do everything. And then when you go home, we're going to box it up for you and we will ship it to an FFL of your choice. You pick it up when you get home. No big deal. And a lot of times for students like that, because they're using it on our range, they've got, we've got everybody there. We won't even take it out of the books of our local FFL. We'll just leave it in and ship it direct to your FFL. So it's not going in and out of books, 3 or 4 different times. And just kind of reduce that paper trail for you.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So,
definitely so.
I know it's not part of the topic, but like for an AR, what do you recommend for like twist rate?
Typically we're running somewhere between a 1-7 and 1-9 twist. It just depends on the ammunition. Right. Now the heavier the bullet, the faster the twist rate you want. So these guys that are coming up and, hey, I want to take this class and this is going to be my varmint gun, I'm going to be shooting 45 grain hollow points. We're probably going to stick them with a 1-9, maybe even a 1-10 twist. Because when you start getting into those 1-7, 6.5 twist rates, that light of a bullet, you'll strip the jacket because that projectile, you're pushing it out about 3,500 feet per second. Okay,
so it's actually stripping the jacket. I didn't know if it just like what calls it though. The jacket would come off, but it would just wobble from overspin because it's so light.
Sometimes they'll destabilize. It just depends on the particular bullet. Every gun's going to have a different like for ammunition too. Especially when we do our long range classes, I will tell students, especially if they're bringing a new gun, I will tell them, because typically I have them bring about 300 rounds. We shoot about somewhere between 75 and 100 rounds per day in that class. But I will tell them if they're bringing a new gun, if you haven't had the time to set it up and hand load it and come up with or find a factory load that your gun likes, go buy 3 or 4 different brands. And just make sure you got the same lot number and everything, because a lot of times I've seen rifles that absolutely hate Federal and absolutely love Hornady, or they absolutely hate Hornady, but they'll shoot a Winchester match round. It just depends. Rifles have their own personality.
Like that's what I want to get out there and do a precision class with you. Like that's like my fun shooting. Like I love precision rifle because it's not something I hardly ever get to do, and it's super challenging.
Well, yeah, where you guys are at, I mean, you could shoot across the state and not reach the limit of your gun.
But we actually do have 1,000-yard range at a 1,000-yard range at my club, which is kind of odd considering we're in Florida, we're on the West Coast, and it's not shooting from a tower.
Right.
Which is usually like unheard of in the state of Florida because we're flat.
Right.
So if you miss on the West Coast, you could maybe hit somebody in Fort Lauderdale.
It's like shooting in Kansas. You stand on a chair, you can see the whole state.
Right, look, Louisiana's not any different, right? I mean, it's why we don't have the 1,000-yard ranges running around, is that you have to engineer it, right? You got to be able to engineer something to be able to catch the bullets. It was a range I used to use that we could stretch out to that, here locally. But for the most part, if you want to go to a public range or even a private range that offers it, North Louisiana has one, and then you kind of going into Mississippi and you can find it, and you run a couple of hours, and 5 hours up one direction, and 3 or 4 hours in another direction, you can find one, but it's about it.
Right. No, I mean, we're pretty lucky to live where we are. We've got wide open spaces. I mean, you guys came up, you guys kind of got to see where we train and places that we go and do. I mean, I'm lucky enough that 10 minutes from my house, we have a 2,000-yard range. So, we're able to do this, and it's nice, especially because we play the long range game a lot. I do a lot with Lucid, with our competitions and things like that. Having access to those kinds of ranges and being able to do the testing and have the knowledge base that we have where we're at, I like to think that we're advancing the industry with some of the things that we're doing. I know I guess it was been about 6 years ago. I mean, we spent an entire summer trying to figure out the right twist rate for the 224 Valkyrie to make it work. So that 1 in 7.5 twist rate, you guys are welcome.
That's where it's at. 1 in 7.5.
1 in 7.5, 1 6.5, and for whatever reason, I mean, we got they're running a couple of different twist rates, but it always seems to be that half that makes the difference.
Interesting. So if somebody comes and signs up, for one of your carbine classes, what does that day look like, or days?
So you're talking about the build?
No. Just if something like your defensive carbine. We'll talk about defensive shooting.
Well, I just did one of those in Colorado about not quite a month ago. But yeah, so they're gonna show up to class. The first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna put everybody at 100-yard zero. Most people coming to class, they're running one of two things. They're either running an LPVO or they're running a red dot. What I have found is that if you're running 100-yard zero, especially for these guys that are running an LPVO, when you drop it, because you're typically going to zero on your highest magnification. When you drop that back down to 1, which optically means no magnification, and you get into that room distance, so you're talking 10, 7 yards, somewhere in there, typically most scope manufacturers, if they're smart, are giving you a reference point to account for height over bore and mechanical offset. This means that when you're shooting up close, you're not guessing what that mechanical offset is that you've got to account for. So after that, I do what it's actually a drill I stole from Wyoming Tactics from Kyle Lamb. It's called the 100-yard aggregate. So we'll start out at 100 yards prone. We go to 75 yards sitting, 50 yards kneeling, 25 yards standing. What this does is it reinforces to the student that, look, we sit there and we zero off of a bench or off a prone, right? But very, very rarely do we actually shoot our carbines from prone. And a lot of times, most students will see a little bit of a shift in where their group shows up. So this allows us to go back and make that shift in the rifle and just gives them a more accurate zero. From there, we're doing just kind of up drills. We're transitioning to our handgun. We work into transitioning from strong to support side and back. We work around barricades. We're again transitioning to our pistol because that's always going to be faster than reloading a rifle. So anytime they run dry, I try to push students to transition to their pistol. And we end it with a couple of games that we play. One of the drills that I run, it's a barricade drill. It forces it's some longer shots. You've got some 50-yard shots. You've got some, they're typically 7 to 10 yards, but you're on the move laterally, and then you're using the barricades, left side, right side, left side, right side, left side. Now you've got to re-engage your targets from left-handed while on the move. It's relatively complicated drill, and then on the very ends, you're making 50-yard headshots. So it kind of pulls everything that we teach together. We talk a lot about the difference between going out training skills in isolation versus application of skills in context, so they understand that from a defensive point of view. And one of the things I always say is I'll never disparage somebody for going out and running time drills and practicing and getting better. You're always going to become a better shooter that way, but you have to understand that you can't go and time yourself from the draw and putting one round in a headshot from 5 yards all day long, and now you can do it in a second and a half. But that time goes out the window when you have to react to something that's approaching you, trying to attack you. So understanding that skills in context versus skills in isolation, I think is a huge thing for our students.
Yeah, absolutely. So, there's a lot of skills and isolations that takes place. You go to any public gun range USA and watch it on a Saturday morning. There's a lot of isolated skills that are happening, right? And just
I got the Mickey Mouse ears on.
What's
that?
Right?
I got the Mickey Mouse ears on. I'm ready. Somebody hits a buzzer.
Deryck's upset because I made him wear headphones tonight.
Well, at the end of the day, I hope that that's one of the biggest takeaways that our students have, is that now when they go to the range and they want to practice something and want to get better, they have a basis for what to go and actually do at the range. Because I see so many people that go out and they're like, yeah, I'm going to practice this and I'm going to get better at this, but they don't really know what to do to get to there. So it just becomes a plinking session and they get bored after a box of ammo.
Or they may not get bored, right? And they may be having fun out there, but if you're ignoring the processing of information and just simply practicing skills in isolation, you could be setting yourself up for complete failure. Right. There's a big difference between the two, and too much of the time we leave out the information processing.
Right. And that's I think that's huge, especially when people come to you and they say, straight up, I want to train to defend myself. Well, you have to understand this contextually, not just be able to shoot fast.
All right, I got a couple of questions. One, Tactical Medical on YouTube's asking, I can see that this would be huge for those of us that are colorblind. I'd love to get my hands on one of these to use it in my training classes. Can you talk a little bit about that when it comes to color blindness and the human eye and the blue reticles?
Sure. So about 8% of the human population is colorblind to red. What this means is, especially in a reflex optic, it doesn't apply so much like we said with an etched reticle with a refracted image, but the reflected image, you got about 8% of the population that they can't see it, or it's so radically flared or distorted that it's unusable to them. The blue, about 0.02% of the population has some kind of color blindness to blue. That is such a small, minuscule amount as to be a statistical anomaly.
Yeah.
So that's something that you can bring up in your classes, and anybody who really wants to do some research and talk to the manufacturers, definitely get in touch with Lucid Optics. They will definitely take care of you, and the information. I did this article a month or so ago, and it's probably a 10th of the research that went into it from the manufacturing side to make this all work. And there's math and things with the coatings that I don't even understand. I just know how it works from the standpoint of the shooter.
Yeah. Get into those conversations with Jason from Lucid. There's a lot of information there.
Yeah, he's trying to explain to you how a watch works, and all you really need to know is the time.
That's absolutely true. Absolutely true. So, kind of wrapping it up, what are the big reasons that blue makes sense? You know, if the technology goes in that direction, and this is going to be the next thing that we start shifting towards, what are the reasons off the top that it actually makes sense that we should be paying attention to the blue reticles?
Well, from a shooter point of view, economics, you're going to save money on batteries because the batteries last way longer. Okay. It's going to be easier for you to see because your eyes, they're going to naturally pick up the blue better. Those with astigmatism. And I don't even know how many people I've run into that have that issue. I think all three of us do. So right there, you can look through a blue reticle with less eye strain for a lot longer. I know when I'm using especially red illuminated reticles, night shooting, things like that, I've got about an hour, maybe an hour 10 before I can't look through it anymore. I know we did that night observation. I was actually running a one-off red reticle, and after about an hour, I just couldn't do it anymore, even looking through it through night vision. The blue, we've done something similar because we do night shoots during our long range. I think be out there for 3 hours and it doesn't bother me. So you have that calming effect. The clean edge reticle, Barret, you talked about that. That blue is it's super clean, and it has to do with the way that it transmits the light through the lenses, and using the blue color, it works better with the way our eyes actually perceive the world. Better with night vision, and it actually does show up better in night vision. And again, we're going to do some testing on that. We'll find out just how much better, measurably.
You said economics with the longer battery life. What is it going to be like? Any new technology typically costs a little bit more than what's already out. So when the blue hits the market and becomes like more common.
I don't think you're going to see much of a cost difference from the red or the green. Where your cost savings is going to come in is you're going to be changing your batteries a lot less often. And I think as blue takes off, just like anything, at first it's going to be maybe a little bit more expensive. I know that the blue stuff that they have coming out now, it's right in that $500 to $700 MSRP range. That's competing with just about anything that's out there right now. All of this stuff, I know, especially this E7, I think is going to punch above its weight class a little bit just because it's so overbuilt. And again, that's a 45 to 60 day release is what they're looking at right now, barring anything happening.
Right. COVID round 6.5.
Something like that, yeah. I say we bring back Nancy Reagan's "Just Say No." We're not going to do this again.
Just let Lucid drop the product anyway.
Exactly. We just got to get it through customs. That's the key.
I do have a question though. That came I got on my phone. This is from somebody I know, and it's not optic related. It's rifle long range stuff. 6.5 Creedmoor. Is it true that barrel life is shortened with a 6.5 Creedmoor versus like a 308 or another like big caliber long range type caliber?
Well, and you gotta compare that very, very specifically. So 6.5 Creedmoor, depending on the ammunition that you're running, your barrel life could be a little bit less than say a 308. The reason for that is you're pushing that 6.5 a lot faster. Barrel life, and this is something that I learned about a decade ago. Barrel life is measured in seconds. So if you think about a 308 barrel, it's about a 28-second barrel. And where they come up with that is you think about the amount of time that a bullet is actually traveling down that barrel, and you add all of that up. the actual travel time down that barrel is in milliseconds, right? But if you add all that up, the barrel life on a 308 is about 28 seconds. 6.5 Creedmoor, 23 seconds. Okay, so that, if you think about it in those terms, you can kind of get an idea of where your barrel life is going to be. But again, it all depends on, there's a couple of factors that come into play. Number one is going to be your ammunition. How hot is it? How fast are you actually moving that bullet? The barrel manufacturer itself. The barrel composition. Are you running a chromoly barrel, or are you running a stainless steel? That's gonna determine some things. And how much are you shooting it? If you're going out and you're shooting a competition where, okay, you shoot 10 rounds and then you let your barrel cool for half an hour, 45 minutes before you shoot the next stage, and then you shoot 10 rounds and you do this over and over, you're not heating up the barrel as much as somebody that's going to the range and shooting 100 rounds in the course of 30, 40 minutes, right? Okay, so those are all factors that come into play in barrel life.
So much better answer than what I told this guy. I'm like, dude, if you can afford the 6.5 Creedmoor rifle, you get the 6.5 Creedmoor ammo, why the heck are you worried about barrel life?
It's 6.5 all over the place.
I'm like, you're the Ferrari guy that's worried about how much tires cost.
That's how they can afford the Ferrari. They don't spend any money on the tires.
But then I'm like, but I'll talk to somebody that'll give you a better answer than mine.
All right, one more question. Any reason why blue doesn't make sense, or not there yet?
I don't really have a good answer for that.
That's a good answer.
I think blue is the natural progression, and I think the reason that it took us so long to get here is that red and green were so accepted as the standards in the industry. Nobody wanted to put the effort into doing anything different. It was there, it was easy, everybody was doing it, everybody had accepted it. Why change? So I applaud Lucid for putting in the effort and making the change, and I really do think it's going to make life better for a lot of shooters, especially those of us who have issues with eyesight and stigmatism and things like that. I think it's going to make a world of difference.
I agree. Well, I say I agree. I agree that I'm super interested, and and I agree that when I picked it up, it was a night and day difference. So I look forward to being able to spend some time, with them and testing them out and kind of seeing where they go from here.
Yeah, well, and hopefully we can have another conversation in a few months when we've got these in the hands of a few people to check them out, get some unbiased opinions, and really see what people are going to think of this. Because I think once they see it, and I've really kind of noticed that across the board with Lucid products, is once people look through them and use them, they become fans really quick.
Well, I was a fan of only messing with yours for like 5 minutes. So.
Yeah. I was a fan as soon as I picked up the blue.
Yeah.
No, it was definitely, the L7 was pretty nice in that sense with that blue reticle.
Well, you guys got a chance to check out the P8, did you not?
Yes.
Okay.
Deryck did.
Yeah. So you got a chance to play with that.
Deryck, y'all had it down at the live event.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a yes?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Yep.
Over in the St. Augustine's.
Yeah. Yeah. So we got a few of those out here this weekend. We'll be playing with those, and I'm going to be pushing this E7 pretty hard and see what I can do with that. We already did a little bit of testing the other day. I ran it against a red dot with the exact same reticle in it, and I was about 20% faster with the blue. So
very interesting.
I'm curious to see if that bears out and if that's consistent with most shooters.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see once you've got a lot more data available with them in different hands.
Right. And we'll be collecting. So
looking forward to it. Jason, if people want to come follow you on the social media, where they find you?
So Instagram, it is just at Wyotac. Facebook's Wyoming Tactical, and I think that's about all we're on at this point.
Well, awesome.
They can also find it. I guess they can also find me at Deer Shooter. We're on Podbean.
All right, there you go.
So that's
right.
every Thursday. So we dropped this morning.
Good deal. So, absolutely check it out. We appreciate you for coming on Training Talk this month. And if anybody else have questions, just drop them into the comments. We'll try to pay attention and get Jason to answer any of those kind of questions that you have. But other than that, thanks for tuning in. If you haven't read it yet, check out his article on the topic at personaldefensenetwork.com. Free article. Go to personaldefensenetwork.com, click on browse articles, recent articles, and it's one of the first few that comes up, at least tonight. And obviously, thanks again for Primary Arms Online for being the sponsor of the show, making all this happen tonight. Y'all have a good night, guys.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. The other reason I don't like